Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this video we are going to go ahead and review the match that happened earlier today between Ohio State University and Bellevue University. And I say the match, but we're probably just going to do Illios. Maybe we'll do a second map. I generally go at such a pace that none of you would want to see me sit here to analyze the whole match. That would just be too long. But I feel like doing team play today. This is an opponent. Both of these are opponents that I could see Northeastern ending up against in the relatively near future. So I feel like taking a look. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that is something I greatly appreciate and helps me grow the channel. Or if you are looking to get coaching yourself, you can join my Discord in the description below, see what my rates look like, promos, events, all that stuff. Okay, so right out the gate here, we see that Ohio is going for the Symmetra play, whereas Bellevue is running the more standard brawl with May. So Ohio should make it to the point first, and they're probably going to set up Symmetra turrets. The question will be, is Bellevue prepared for this? It can be tough if the Symmetra team gets there first, which they should with their teleporter, to brawl in when she's preset a few turrets there. On the other hand, they don't get the May wall. And that can matter quite a bit for hitting mini little isolation, even having a couple second advantage, especially on a closed point where you can get maybe not complete, but most of the way wall offs. That can really help out. So there's the TP, and sure enough, Ohio did get there first. So is Bellevue going to take a surround? Is Bellevue going to make good use of their wall? What are they doing? So yeah, it looks like they're taking a surround. You can already see that they've got their Ryan trying to swing down this. Let's do red, because red is the team that we are doing this. Ryan is trying to swing down this opening. Diva is shooting in through this opening, and McCree looks like he's maybe going to shoot into this opening here. So they're trying to get a bit of a surround. And the advantage to that is Bellevue can afford to get a bit of a surround because Ohio does not want to push out to go get them. Ohio doesn't want to seriously push out to go chase down this McCree, to go chase down BAP, for example, because then they lose their Symmetra pre-turret advantage. So Bellevue can afford to get their little mini surround here with Diva over here, with Ryan over swinging into this way, and McCree shooting in here. And that actually is a pretty big power advantage in some ways, because if you think of the principle of Brawl v Brawl, those of you that have been paying attention know that the off-angling McCree is one of the most powerful aspects of it, and your McCree really can't off-angle, or if it is, it's a surprise play if you're running the McCree Symmetra and you're playing on point, because if performance isn't on point, then Bellevue can just go hunt down performance and they can't really help him, and then they can go in and take their 6v5 into Ohio. So it's likely he's on the point, which means the directions that he threatens, the ability of him to threaten, they have to threaten outwards and not with very much range. You know, the McCree can shoot, sure, but they have to threaten outwards, whereas red here gets to go ahead and say, hey, we're going to threaten in here, we're going to threaten in here, we're going to threaten in here, and that's much more powerful. You guys know from having played the game that if you're in here and you're having to figure out, oh, we're going to shoot out this way and out this way and out this way, that's way more comfortable being surrounded and be like, ew, there's things shooting at me in every direction than it is shooting in like this. So while brawl teams generally do like to have corner choke control like this right here is taking away their ability to have their McCree off angle, or as long as Bellevue scout and make sure that the McCree isn't hiding somewhere, their McCree's ability to off angle, which if they're any good at the game, they should have. And we see performances right there. So Ohio State did not, in fact, hide their McCree. So it looks like they're going for the surround, and we can actually see they're going for another angle still. Their Lucio went through here there. Bellevue's Lucio went and escorted. Oh, I'm trying. Escorted Ryan into position, escorted Diva into position, dropped her off, and then went back here to threaten this window himself. So they've gone full on this surround thing. It's a little scary because it does give blue more ability if they're willing to potentially go, no, now we really are willing to speed out. They won't have amp, but speed out to come chase you guys down, and they're going to have a bit of trouble backing away, but they probably don't want to do that because, again, that means that they are pushing into... That means they are pushing into Red's ability to swing on them to enforce this corner, and they are leaving their nice little Symmetra turrets behind. So this is reasonable counterplay from Bellevue. I like it. It's one of the reasons I'm not hugely in love with the Symmetra strategy. It has its place, don't get me wrong, but I think good standard counterplay can beat it, and this looks like good execution, initially at least from Bellevue here. Okay, and as we see that, now our Rhine has swapped sides if we're thinking from Bellevue's perspective, where Rhine is swinging in here, McCree is shooting in here, Diva's still thinking about threatening this space. It's important that Diva threatens this space while not getting simmed. If Diva's getting simmed, she needs to back off immediately. Anyone who's getting sim beamed needs to back off immediately, unless Bellevue's wall has come out. And now that Bellevue's wall has come out, a couple things happened. We got the lamp, we split their team, and by getting their lamp, we were immediately able to threaten this lamp. It's really hard to see with this perspective, but just to rewind this real quick. The teleport, we've talked about this. They do this. We see Bellevue is taking this around. That's good. Rhine starts on there, switches over to this side. That causes the McCree to switch lanes as well. That's good, but we see Red's got the nice surround. We know Lucio is circling. And we've got this lamp out. This lamp is already out, which is fantastic news. And again, you see how Bellevue has the ability to threaten this lamp because they're able to go, we threaten from here as well as here. And they actually are threatening from over here as well and over here as well. But I'm really only interested right now in the two threat lines that are on my screen. So like they're able to, Ohio would potentially be able to protect their lamp if they were just fighting in one direction, if they just had to worry about the threat from this direction. But because Bellevue is able to have this off angle, because they're turtled on the point, Ohio State University, this lamp gets not just forced early, but gets destroyed early. So now there's a lamp advantage for Bellevue, and they haven't yet used their wall. Now we see that they do use their wall in just a moment here, but this should be it. The lamp has already been forced out, took the good concave to start the point. It looks like this lamp, oh, lamp gets destroyed, and the wall did something. The wall got some amount of value, and we can see that it got some amount of value because, hey, some pretty decent damage got done to the Reinhardt, the Echoes at low health. Yes, there's damage done to Bellevue too, but other than Avery, no one is really vulnerable right now on Bellevue, and Avery's going to be in a place where they don't want to chase out and get him. So unless Performance hits another shot on him, this is looking pretty good for Ohio State. They have a tempo lead in that they got wall value, they already beat the lamp, they have their own lamp to use, they have that nice concave. They are winning this fight right now. Okay, pushing through here. Not my favorite to have your McCree breaking those, but I suppose it was fast enough, even though we did miss the shots. Now we're swapping sides, and we are playing from Ohio's point of view. Ohio is the team with the sim, and we can see that Bellevue was able to cash in a bit of their advantage that they got from having taken out the lamp, from having gotten to use their wall to get the Reinhardt lead to go ahead and take out Eski, the Lucio player for Ohio State here. So that's good. We saw they took out the lamp, and they've gone ahead now and taken out the Lucio player. So this should be a pretty good cleanup. The sim's still scary, but this should be a relatively normal cleanup at this point, unless something goes wrong for Bellevue. Well, that can't happen. That was way too much damage that Performance got off while the opposing Diva was right there. So we swapped to Performance here. There's a Diva in his face. I believe there's a Diva in his face, and there's the opposing Rhine in his face. And that happened. We got the flashbang off. That was not supposed to happen. That's poor on the Diva's part. And now we have really put this Rhine in a critical situation when that should really not have been the case. So we'll see how that goes. Performance does just barely get away, but the Reinhardt here has gone down. Okay. And how is this going to? And now this fight is just a mess again. So even though we had the good initial opening from here, so let's take one more look. It's hard with all the side changing. I'm sorry, guys. Avery does this. They get this lead. We take down. Bellevue takes down Esky. This happens. Performance for Ohio State. He's down a player already. He's got a diva coming into his face who can matrix him and should have plenty of matrix left because it's not like Diva's been spending matrix on Sim, for example. Not meaningfully, anyways. And Reinhardt is in his face. He'll get deleted quickly. Should be no danger of the Rhine getting flashed here. The Rhine and Diva, it looked like both get flashed there. That should not happen. That should not happen. Don't lose either of them. Don't lose either of them, but they've got to be playing super passive. And then elsewhere in the fight, we see the Sim gets an elimination back. Okay. Okay. So this gets messy. That was more damage that should have been traded back there onto Bellevue's tanks, and I expect that's probably causing them to play passive, not get as much done as they should here. Is that going to let Ohio back into this fight? How is this going to break down? And we're down to this. Okay. So the first respawn comes back, and that is enough to flip it. Okay, so that got really messy in the end. It looked like a clean open for Bellevue. I think Bellevue did have the clean open, had the right way to do that, probably should have won that fight, but then Performance was able to get off that flashbang onto both of the tanks and really get chunking down on the Reinhardt that shouldn't have happened. It was always going to be the case that grab here was going to do a lot of damage back to the team with the sim. Like that's just how sim works. So that was always in the calculation. The McCree damage did not have to be in the calculation. Okay. How is Bellevue looking to push this time through high ground? It looks like. Is there some sort of spread for Ohio State or no? It doesn't look like it. It looks like they've got the TP behind the pillar there so that it can't be seen from the high ground. That's okay. They're going to clear the turret first. Aren't they? Aren't they going to clear the teleporter first? Guess not. We're spending the Blizzard after we've already lost the McCree. I don't love this. I think this is a case of you're too far behind in this fight. You've lost the McCree, and what happened there was a shatter, I believe. Let me take a look. This is happening. Poking from here. Clearly, Bellevue is going to set up the nice concave again, which is generally speaking the right idea. Yeah, the McCree gets shattered. That sometimes happens when you set up your concave. If you aren't using your own natural cover, which was definitely an option, could have played by that tower in the middle there. That would have been, not really shatterable. And then we're committing this after having been shattered, after down a player, hugely behind on health on the Diva. I don't think this Blizzard is going to work. And we're not even getting follow-up done during the Blizzard because we instantly used Ice Block. It's not the only May I've seen recently who does that. He's not getting hit by the blizzard. He's in the lamp. He's got the wall between him and the snowball. On what planet did they need the sim wall? Why is Ohio State popping the sim wall here? They use shatter. They answer effectively with window here to the blizzard. We're going to call it that, and that's fine with me. Ohio State's winning this hard. There's a counter window, which again I think is poor. And then a sim wall. This is just a messy ult fight for both teams. The shatter was good. The shatter was good. I'm good with the shatter. Choose to invest the window after the other team has invested the blizzard. No problem whatsoever. The window from the attacking team from Bellevue, who's clearly losing the fight, no. The sim wall from Ohio, who's already cleanly won the fight, regardless of the window, also no. Like this is bad ult usage. Speaking of bad ult usage, did I mention that you guys had already won the fight? Okay. Ohio deserves to drop point after that. I don't know that they will, though, because Bellevue also poured too many ults in. And for those of you who want sound, I promise I'm not trying to be mean. It's that if I rewind and let you listen, it's not that great.
To get those ice shields off with Potatoes. Potatoes able to defend it, and it looks like Ohio State up to a very quick lead at 47% on the point.
As I like to joke about, performance definitely puts on a performance. He had 3 kills in that team fight right there, and really was able to put Ohio State over on that last team fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That's not going to work for me. Sorry, guys. Okay. That's my view on most casters, though. They try, they mean well, but most just don't know the game well enough, and even if they do, they can't keep up with the pace of play for explaining it. And I get the benefit of getting to use pauses. Okay, so they're using a wall to rotate, not to split, not to push, just to rotate. Basically, blah. Though Sham's been doing a pretty good job. I mean, he has more insight than the usual announcer gets, and that he gets to see one of the team's practice that he's announcing for. But hey, okay. So we wasted the wall already from Bellevue's perspective, but we don't have to push yet. We could wait for the next wall. Are we going to split again? Go for the shatter here. Is your team ready? Yeah, your team's with you, it looks like. Swap sides to go here. Did you need that beat, or are you using that beat offensively? I think that's offensive. I think you're just changing pace and going for a bit of an overrun. This is blocked. Ohio is totally fine when they pop that beat, and they're doing this just so that they can run out. And I like that. I like that from Ohio. They're doing this as a change of pace. They pop their amp immediately. They shouldn't struggle with this high noon. They have their beat health for a second or so that'll make them not worry about this, and they're running out here hard to come do work. So this is a good change of pace from Ohio State. May is down from Bellevue. High noon didn't get any value. Lucio is down. Ryan got both of these eliminations. Potatoes. Potatoes, what are you doing? Are you just trying to get play of the game? Like, you know that your team is up to. You just got 2 eliminations. Why are we spending shatter? And then Bellevue caved. Bellevue decided, oh, I can't do it. We're losing. Clearly, the May is not the pick. The May is not the pick. We are going to first go Sim to mirror them, and then no, how about Tracer? Team, please yell at Capo and make them get on May. No. Okay. See, I really don't think the issue was the Met. I think actually Bellevue had a pretty good execution, a pretty good first fight. They had the right idea. I really think that their plan was fine. It's just hard to win future fights because there was ult advantage for the second fight that they had to go through, and they lost into that. No. Was it the second fight where they got shattered off the bat? It was. So they just got shattered off the bat in the second fight because you've got to play into ults at that point. Your McCree could have positioned behind this pillar here where that would have been less of a threat and still been able to pew pew threaten in. That would have been an option. And then they threw ults that they didn't need to into a lost fight with their blizzard, with their window. That was just poor. Fortunately, Ohio answered with a silly number of ults, but this has not been a comp issue. This has been a not using cover issue for this. This has been a Diva not eating the flashbang issue here, and this has been a using too many ults issue. This has not been a compositional issue. The Doomfist pick now makes sense. They're now picking Doomfist because they are just trying to get back in time. Now Kappa being on Tracer makes sense, 91%. I think when they first swapped to Sim, that threw me. Like that timing-wise, there was still time. But now, hey, they're not going to get a real team fight. I get it. They're just on fast heroes. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's Rob Dub. I didn't even realize Rob Dub was at Bellevue. Okay. Or Rob 420 as he used to be. Very early day contenders, if it was even contenders there, contenders equivalent player. Hasn't really been in the scene since though. And doesn't really hold up to the current level of contenders player. But by no means a pushover. I mean, the good player. Both of these teams are good players. This is the top four, the semifinals for the seeding mixer that happened today for the 9-1 teams. Yeah, this was the final four for the seeding mixer for the 9-1 teams. So these are both good teams, and these are good players. I mean, this is just cleanup. I'm not too worried about it. Bellevue doesn't really have a chance. hmm if I didn't already answer the caster, the caster placement, how I rank their casting, the little bit that I just unmuted here was actually a bit better. Before I started this review, I listened to a tiny bit to see if I wanted it muted or not, and the very beginning was very painful. Was very painful. The last bit I listened to, I could work with if I had to, but I'm gonna choose not to. So what we just listened to could be silver or gold, sure, but what I listened to for the first minute or so before deciding no, not doing this was definitely bronze tier. Okay, so we see this. Ohio, are they going to run the sim again, or is this just a TP? You wouldn't usually have your sim. That sim might be real. You wouldn't usually have your May be the one to pick sim because your May can't catch up, whereas your McCree gets a tiny bit of catch up potential with their role. Plus, if they come late, that's sort of like them showing up on an off angle and can have some value. That's much less true for your May. So I'm thinking the sim is real. Oh, it's a Reaper swap. Reaper can TP switch up. Okay, let me see where they line up, and then I'll talk through these comps a bit. Okay, so the big swing here is Bellevue is running the traditional comp with what was I saying? Bellevue is running the traditional comp with the May, the Brawl, and Ohio State is running the Reaper. I do prefer the May. What you get with the May is you get an actual poke range that you can play with. You get the May wall split for the brawls. If you can make the brawl fight happen quickly, you do get a much better ult. Those are three nice things that you get. When you're running the Reaper, you've really got two options. Either you run the Reaper sort of in your front line like you'd run a Zarya with very small off angles, does a lot of damage to the shield, puts a lot of pressure on it, puts the fight on a shorter timer than May does if you are, how shall I say, if you are puts the fight on a shorter timer than May does in some ways in terms of we're going to put out real good shield pressure. We're going to break that Rhine shield if you don't do the right things, and then we're just going to win the fight compared to the May. You can play it like that. I don't think that's great. Or the other way that you can play it is you can have your Reaper sort of play how a Doomfist or a Sombra would play, where your Reaper tries to take like mini actual flanks, not just slight off angles, but actual flanks. And as your Reaper shows up, your team pushes, and it becomes a case of, let's do this in blue. So here's red, Here is blue. Blue is here. Reaper goes in. Team goes in. Red gets wiped out. Or here's red. Here's blue. Team goes in. Reaper goes in. Red gets wiped out. Like, that's the option. The other that you can do. What you do if you're red in this situation is you go, we're going to keep an eye out for the Reaper, but we're going to spend most of our attention. Let's go like this. We'll get a little mini X over here. While this Reaper is setting up the flank, Red refuses to let there not be poke going on. They constantly rotate to make sure that there is poke going on, but they keep a distance that Blue can't quickly close on them, and they constantly just go. Let me do this with Red. They constantly just go poke, 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 but they do it from a distance that if Reaper shows up, Blue can't close fast enough to run them over before they have time to turn and have basically everyone except Reinhardt focus the Reaper and make him leave. And then once that Reaper is left, because Blue's win condition was to push in while the Reaper was in, they're already part way in, and Red, even though they're low on resources, gets to go, well, we've made your Reaper leave, and now we're just going to run you over and crush you. That's how Red counterplays it. I can tell you it is uncomfortable to play into. Teams had to master this a lot during Goats because teams would try to run Sombra Goats, and it's very uncomfortable to play into. This is easier. Playing into the Brawl plus Reaper that's flanking like this, or Brawl plus Doomfist, is much easier than it was during Sombra Goats, but it's the same basic pull back, push in motion where you pull back, you hard force out the Reaper, and then you push back in, and you don't let Blue just hide from you while their Reaper's setting up. You keep the constant poke pressure on them because that puts a timer on their Reaper to set up, because you have 6 people poking at them, including your Mei Icicles. They only have 5 poking at you, so they're losing that war. The other option, again, like I said, is that you go, hey, here's Blue, here's Red, and Reaper is off-angling slightly. And that's okay. And it might feel like, oh, hey, or maybe even worse, he's not off angling slightly and he's with the team. And you're thinking, hey, we are going to put your shield on a tighter timer than our shield. So we're going to break your Reinhardt shield faster than you can break our Reinhardt shield because we have the Reaper. And that's going to be good for us. That's not as good as having the Mei, in my opinion, because, well, it's true that Reaper does a good job of breaking the shield faster. You don't actually win Brawl consistently by breaking the other team's shield. You win Brawl by forcing out the other team's defensive cooldowns, which Mei gets to use her Ice Beam to do to force Reaper to Wraith, to force D.Va to Booster, to force Zarya to Bubble, to force Lucio to go away, to force, you get the idea. You're actually looking to force the defensive cooldowns with Mei, and Mei does that better with her Ice Beam, with threatening to freeze people, than Reaper does, because Reaper can be answered by D.Va. Mei can't be answered by D.Va. Reaper can be answered by D.Va. So if you guys are wondering, how do these comps work into each other? Why is it, why do some teams run the Reaper, some run the Mei? This is sort of how that matchup works. If there's questions, go ahead and ask. But I think I've covered that well enough for you guys to have a basic understanding of it. Okay. Here we are. Is our quality as high as it can be? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that comes through. That did not get eaten. Excuse me? Lucio up there, I understand that that's kind of far out from the statue to be Lucio. Why is McCree there? I don't understand. So for those of you that didn't see it, Red's McCree, so that's Bellevue's McCree, walked along out here, and this stun should be embarrassing for this diva because the diva did see it. It was from the McCree that just walked out over here while his Reinhardt was walking here. I approve of off angling. That's good, but this should not have been able to happen. Like, this should have been, hey, we can swing at this, we can DM this, we can shoot at this McCree from our own off angles. Blue should have their own team off angling in a fan behind them. So blue should be fanned, if these guys are pushing like this, blue should be fanned out like this with their own concave, and this McCree should have been forced out by damage that this concave is able to threaten to make McCree either get eliminated or go back here. Should not have been allowed to get up here. The off-angle target, not the Reinhardt, is what should have been getting shot at here. So this is not particularly amazing. That said, this is one of the advantages of the Mei wall. Red, as you can see, does have the Mei wall and was able to throw the Mei wall behind the Reinhardt and Diva, which is stopping some of the concave from contributing. It shouldn't be stopping people to the left, but there's a possibility that there's not people to our left right now. That's wrong. It would mean that Ohio State has not set up a very good concave given the shape of this map, but it is possible. And it is showing us the value of the wall in action there. Yikes. Why is our Reaper there? Is our Reaper there because the Lucio forced him in? Must be. And you can see this wall has forced the lamp. This wall has forced the lamp for blue. That's great. Hopefully this Reaper is here because Click forced him in by riding around the, from our perspective, left side of the statue and booping him in when he was previously off-angling to the left. Hopefully. Okay, finally that McCree gets punished. But Red's lamp comes out much later than Blue's lamp did, which would generally be an advantage, but it didn't come out in time to save their first person. It didn't come out in time to actually save Avery from Grab, Ohio's Reaper here. So that's a mistake. And that potentially gives Ohio a way back into this. Click's doing a good job of checking him. It is much easier to check a Reaper as Lucio than it is a Mei. Mei is just like, have a little frost, and Lucio is suddenly very unhappy. And this should be over. Yeah. So we saw there that Bellevue set up a better concave effectively. I think the McCree play was aggressive, but maybe they saw that, again, we don't have perfect camera. Maybe they saw that too much of Ohio was bunched up over here, so their wall was going to work, and there wasn't enough Ohio over here. Or the only Ohio over here was the Reaper, which they had a plan for to boot back in, and they did successfully execute that if that was the plan and what happened. So good execution on their part. Again, I think the McCree play was a little risky. I'm disappointed that they didn't save their McCree in time when because he did get the playoff, he just then got knocked down. But hey. Okay. Ohio's pushing back in. Ohio has no cooldowns to play with. Let me make sure I understand how this just worked. Did you guys reset between fights at all? Diva's still up here. Reinhardt's still up here. I'm pretty sure you're down, people. I don't think you can be pushing here. Oh, no, this is still this one. My bad. I rewound too far. Okay. So you just lost the Diva mech. And you just lost the Diva. And we're pushing back in. We're pushing back in as Ohio without our Diva. Why are we pushing back in this hard? We're actively trying to take this space while we're down our Diva. If we already had the space holding it, I could live with. I do not like actively pushing this hard to get the space. But you got Mei. So now that you have Mei, you can potentially treat this as the, hey, this is the 5v5. We're happy to take the 5v5. I can live with that. Okay, we have a better concave. Reaper to the left, McCree sort of on main, Reinhardt to the right, and right is sort of main. So it's really right is main, McCree is left, and Reaper is a further left flank. Except that Reaper was in open, got forced out. Like, conceptually, it made sense what they were doing, except that the actual terrain didn't allow for it. Reaper can't just walk through open like that. There's no cover there. That's not going to work. If his team is pushing, he might be able to, but if his team is pushing, the other team is going to back up and cause the Ohio plus Reaper to be in front of them again, and Reaper's not going to really get value. Yeah, that just wasn't great pathing. Okay, got the lamp out. I'm not sure why the camera took us to our diva who couldn't see the fight there. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of Ohio's push there. They tried to push down a person. They did get the person back, so then they were pushing into a 5v5, but Bellevue was preset up with their concave, and they didn't really do much to take away that concave from them. They didn't do an outside push. They didn't do a push up the side here to then try to flip the map. They didn't do the like push here to try to, as a group, like box tight for your push them in to try to make the other team rotate here to try to squish down their concave. They just tried to set their own concave, but they tried to do it across the point like that with the Reaper. That's not a thing that works. Okay. Okay, so only at 22%, but not looking amazing for Ohio right now. So Ohio's trying to send their Reinhardt through here. What tools do they have to play with? They have effectively High Noon, Beat, and Window, and they're playing into nothing. So they do have ult advantage. That's good for them. I'm not convinced that Rob Deb needed to spend that last window that he did, but they now have ult advantage. They need to figure out how they can use these ults to effect to actually win, because they don't want to just use ults to rotate. They want to use ults to win the fight. And preferably, they'd like to not cash out all 3 ults, because they do have to fight their way back into this game. They can't just do the we cap first, we go to 99, then you flip it, then we come back and win it type thing with our ults. So, because they didn't get first cap here. So, they're going to rotate up left, and then maybe they're going to go, hey, we rotate up left, maybe we window from left, and when you go to cover, while you're going to cover, to avoid us from left, our McCree high noons from main, because our McCree is delayed intentionally for the off angle, maybe. I could see that. Get booped down, good. Good counter from Bellevue. There's our McCree, so our McCree clearly isn't going to stay behind for that. Okay. That's not really sneaky enough. That's not really an off angle. Like, I understand what they were going for. They were going to do a we'll rotate all the way around, and then maybe once we push in, our McCree will wait a second and then do this. But I don't think Diva spent boosters for that boop. I think Lucio got the boop earlier. I think Diva's just going to DM this. And that McCree doesn't have good cover, and that McCree isn't going to get, like, last second lifted by a May wall because there's no May wall in this team. I don't think that's going to work. Well, that didn't work. So, predictably, a pink robot showed up with DM in his face, and he got headshot by the other McCree. Okay. And they also spent their window, and they spent their window from the exact same angle. Like, guys. Blue. High noon from here, window from here. These are not meaningfully different angles. They're just not. No. Bad. These threaten the same effective area. Mm-hmm. Is anything going to stop Bellevue from just 100%ing this? Let's take a look. So, thinking about the ult that we have for Bellevue, that is a fat war chest. Whereas over for Ohio, they effectively have self-destruct, shatter, barrier, and they could get two team fights, one fast team fight then another, or one slow team fight. Um, Again, I'm going to want them to do a better rotation to take away Bellevue's off angling because Bellevue's been doing a better job of setting concaves. You see this? We can see it from here where it's like, hey, they've got one person over here, one person here, one person over here. This is what I mean by this is our concave, and if you're blue pressing into this concave, you then get shot from multiple directions and it's uncomfortable. So what you generally do is you do something like, you do something like this where you can keep cover between you and the opponents, like hard cover between you and the opponents for as long as you can to get yourself up to here to push this way to make red collapse back to here, and then they're all over here. And then, oh, you don't have a concave on us as we've pushed, and then we can take a straight-on fight. And it might be a straight-on fight in a different direction than the two spawn rooms, but it's a straight-on fight because you've forced red to collapse. That's usually what you'd try to do. And I just haven't seen an amazing job of that yet. Okay, can you use your ults well? Can you set this up? Okay, so at least they're setting up their own concave a little bit with the Diva there, but not really. Why is my McCree right there with my Reinhardt? Why is my McCree right here with my Reinhardt? Is that lamp I just saw come out already? Or was that just a Lucio aura? Yeah, that's lamp for Bellevue. Was Bellevue thinking they were going to hard push into this? Was Bellevue throwing a lamp that they were then going to push into? That's really weird. I do not approve. Ohio is of course going to catch that because it's a tell that there's a hard push coming, and they are going to shatter. Okay. Both shatters go off. The beat goes off from Esky. I don't know if that was because the lamp was such a tell or if that's a reaction to the shatter. Okay. I mean that was a bad misplay with the lamp there, and that's a big resource lead. Like, remember, I'm willing for teams to go, hey, let's use a wall to get lamp out. Let's do some of this. Like, there's cooldowns that matter in this matchup, and going, hey, we got your lamp for free and it didn't really do anything is a big deal. So I'm not too surprised that they then go down here. That said, Ohio did use two ults for that. Now they have Blossom and Self-Destruct. And Bellevue still has a pretty decent stack of ults with their 4 ults there. Everything except Blizzard and Shatter. Red player, red player, red players. Blue player. And is the rest of his team properly spread out behind him? I don't think so. No, I have no reason to believe that there's any blue players over to the left because I don't think Lucio would have been willing to come through here if there were blue players to the left. I think all of his team was behind him, and I bet they got walled. His Diva's right behind him. To the right, we can see, I think his whole team is behind him to the right. There's just no defensive concave here. This is a complete misunderstanding of... And then the wall, of course, blocks everything. Like, that's a gift. Okay, good luck. Who cares about your self-destruct? Or who cares about your blossom? It's not going to do anything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that should be it. I don't know if Ohio even gets a touch. It was at like 89, so they probably do. Yeah, Lucio should be able to touch here. But this should be very comfortable cleanup. Looks like maybe Ryan had to come back from spawn, but everyone else from Bellevue was here. And Ohio's just trying to fight their way in. Don't make a liar out of me. And the lamp never got destroyed. Yeah. Okay. Um, Ohio State doesn't understand concaves. Like they might fundamentally understand them, but they don't execute concaves. Neither team is that disciplined with their ult bank, and Bellevue, I think we've seen. No, we saw Ohio State do a overrun type play with their beat. That was good on first. We saw Bellevue maybe try to execute an aggressive run them over play with their lamp there, which could have been cool, but their team clearly wasn't ready for it because no one so much as moved when they threw that lamp out there. So either that was a misclick by Rob Dab, or the team just did not believe in that called play. They tried it, but it's not really in their arsenal, etc. So ult bank problems for both of them. No concaves, like no good concaves for Ohio State, whereas Bellevue has shown they're quite capable of concaves. They understand how to use their May wall. Bellevue looks like the better team right now. I know they're 1-1 here on this control point, but uh, that kind of had to do with a gimmicky thing that Ohio got with the sim thing that works on one point that Bellevue almost had the answer for. So that's my take on these two teams so far. Hmm. Well, are they both playing it straight on well? They are both playing it straight on well. Okay, we have the high ground rotation from Ohio State. Nothing too unusual on either side here. No sim shenanigans. No poke comps. Hmm. First wall comes from Bellevue. That's not terribly surprising. It looks like Ohio likes to find excuses to not play May, so it's not going to surprise me if Bellevue regularly gets the better first wall. How did that Ryan trade go? That Ryan trade went reasonably. Bellevue fell a tiny bit behind on it. As the Divas are hitting their shenanigans, their Atrixes to protect. That first wall does go off, and this could actually be a problem because I'm not convinced Bap is in here to save him. So that wall could actually really be a problem. You see, Bellevue got a little bit more space in here. Like they went and took, they fully have their half of cage, whereas Ohio just got their tanks into their half of cage. So even if the had hit a wall, even if Ohio had hit a wall first, it would have been a less valuable wall just based on the space that their tanks were able to take and the ability of their team because their tanks took it to press in here. Um, Goes down before we can get a lamp out. Lose both tanks before a lamp before this pillow gets broke. No lamp comes in. That's over. Okay, Bellevue's doing a forward hold on the high ground. They get out rotated. Realistically speaking, they're here. They're doing this. They get rotated past. They have point control, so they can afford this. But they didn't really get value out of that there. And this time we see the first wall goes there. That makes sense. I mean, they didn't really react quickly enough to the fact that Ohio was completing their rotation. So yeah, that's fine. Diva doesn't have to use her boosters, can protect from here. This is going to be less punishing than the last wall because the BAPs will be able to jump over this wall. So I don't, this is definitely favored for Ohio here. They got the good lead, even if they're a little bit behind on Rhine health, but this is not as decisive a wall as Bellevue's wall was last fight. So I expect they're going to have to use their lamp first, but not so much first that the fight is, decided necessarily. Like, yes, it's a chip. It's a chip in their favor. It adds up. You get a couple of those, and the fight is decided. But I think, please don't back up. Okay. Yes. Why is your diva frozen? That shouldn't even have been possible. I mean, it's possible, but like, why is your diva frozen there? Why did you just drop diva? There was absolutely no need for this. So diva, blue diva, red diva, excuse me, got lifted on top of this wall. Lifted on top of this wall is plenty comfortable. You can send your DM down and be like, yep, I can still protect my Rhine if I need to. Yeah, eventually they're going to shoot at you, and that's fine. If they start shooting at you, then you go, yep, I'll drop. But you're actually happy for them to shoot at you for a moment because, hey, they're shooting at you. They should shoot at you. They should shoot at you, don't get me wrong. But you're happy to let them shoot at you for a moment to, we'll say, soak a little bit of damage off Rhine. Because you do have this wall to worry about. So you don't want to get chunked for like 400 damage, but hey, they take a shot or two at me before I drop behind. That's going to be kind of fine with you. And then if you do drop behind, yes, you might booster to come back to continue protecting your Rhine, but this was too fast of a drop and too fast of a booster return. Our Rhine is still not great, but okay right now. I don't like our Diva coming through here as quick as we did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't adequate protection from Ryan. It looks like the lamp did not get deployed. The lamp not getting deployed might be a weakness there. Okay. Mm-hmm. This should just be Ohio State cleaning up. Mm-hmm. Okay, are we set? We're mostly set. Okay, so we're set. Ohio State is playing in cage here. They have their May with their Reinhardt, reasonable enough. They have their Lucio playing over to the right there. Diva's playing there on point, sure. When we think about the ult banks in terms of what we have available, we are thinking that Ohio State gets to hold with their Blizzard, their Shatter, their High Noon, and their Window. Bellevue, on the other hand, is their Shatter, their Blizzard, their High Noon. So basically, we are looking at a window difference. That's fine in terms of what does that mean for how Bellevue would be expected to push. Bellevue is going to come through the high ground here, sure. Are they going to do any sort of split? They could do a split. They could do the high ground push. You don't need to anchor in cage as hard as you would against like a poke team right now. So they could come through here, bait blue out, and then have their McCree. They could effectively, what am I trying to say? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw red come through here, but then leave their McCree over here, have their McCree late peak with the High Noon to see if we can get work done, especially if it's after Diva's either been chunked or used boosters to join this fight. That would be a pretty reasonable play here. Other than that, either team could be trying to force this into a close range fight for their Blizzard. What you could also do is either team could threaten the High Noon from this portion of the point to pull the diva as the brawl is happening, and then immediately blizzard. Those are the other things that we could see either team do. So let's see how this plays out. They have pretty similar ult options. Well, that works. So Eski goes for that, knocks them down. What? Is the wall to keep some of them up there after some have been knocked down? There's that. Is anyone stuck behind the wall? No. Maybe that was supposed to be a play of we knock them off, some of them get knocked off, and then some get stuck by the wall. I don't think that was ever going to be all that good. I think you wanted the wall because you were never actually going to be able to make the wall fully delay them really from, hey, I just drop and then I'm in the fight again. It's not going to be that far. I think you really would have preferred to get just a little more of a traditional split with this wall, because when you think about how closed, how tight this area is once people have been knocked off, you can actually get walls that actually have to be broken to do for the other team to get through them pretty easily. So I think the more traditional wall would have made sense here. We see the window has come out for Ohio, but because Bellevue, I mean, Bellevue has done two good things with their wall there. So let's watch it one more time so that I have a better angle. This wall, I like this wall, and the reason I like this wall is twofold. A, it's the good block in terms of, hey, it's actually blocked this off, and this people can't pierce through, so the people that are stuck back here are actually stuck, so they don't actually get numbers advantage on Bellevue. B, you see how it's got a little bit of a diagonal? It's not just a straight like this wall, it's at a little bit of a diagonal, and that's to make it so that even breaking a pillar to try to get access to the window damage amplification for Ohio State University doesn't get them that much, because the next pillar is still sort of blocking it, because the pillars sort of overlap with each other from the direction that the other team would want to shoot, because it's like this as opposed to like this, if that makes sense. It's why you see Maze have gotten good lately, and it'll be like, hey, I'm going to wall like this to close this door, as opposed to walling like this to close this door, because you have to break multiple pillars to get through. You can't quite do this in this situation, but this is a pretty good compromise for you kind of have to break multiple pillars. Breaking one pillar doesn't get you a very wide sight line compared to normal, so you kind of want to break multiple. That said, after you break one, breaking the next will be faster because you will have window damage into the next. I expect Bellevue's going to win that. It's not 100%, but I expect. Oh, there goes the Blizzard. What? Oh, it's the Blizzard, but it's Ohio blizzarding, but Capo manually froze Jan. Okay. Well, that could do it. Yeah. There's the other team's window coming out. Okay. That was messy, but Bellevue did get the job done. A lot of that had to do with their good start. Ohio then went ahead and invested their blizzard, while Bellevue did not, and that was sort of the difference. And that was much of the difference, even though Bellevue, let me rephrase that. Ohio went for what looked like a sort of set play, didn't work out very well. Bellevue hit the much better wall, in my opinion, and then mostly rode that to victory, even through the bigger, more powerful ult on Ohio's side being used in the form of Blizzard. And that initiation is the difference there. But the reason it wasn't a clean win after that good Bellevue wall was that Ohio invested that extra powerful ult in Blizzard. Mm-hmm. Bellevue's holding here. Fine. This is an adjustment from when they had control before. Last time they held high ground on the other side, if memory serves. They used a Maywall to get up there. So they think this is the bad place to be. That was the conclusion that they drew. I'm not sure that's the correct conclusion. I think the conclusion was don't be late to counter rotate because they get to sort of shoot into where you're going to drop first or where you're going to be first. They get to potentially hit their wall first, but you'll be able to do that here. But I don't really think it's your initial positioning. I think it was slow that you were slow to rotate to counter rotate to match last time. Okay, so Rob got caught out there. And they were slow this time too. So let's add to our list. I should probably pull up a notepad. So if we think this through, we have ults over ulting issues on both sides. We've got Ohio State doesn't understand concaves, or doesn't execute concaves is probably more accurate. We have Bellevue has given us minor signs that they aren't really great at what I'll call overruns. Bellevue, bad overruns, or lamp mistake. Then what else we have that we are looking at here that I care about is going to be Ohio State's walls are late/poor. Bellevue's slow to counter rotate because we see that happening here again. These are all things that I want to keep an eye on. Why Rhinon well? Because they're playing Brawl mirrors. They've both decided that maybe Brawl is what they've practiced in general, and they don't want to spend time practicing a specific comp for a map where maybe a different comp would work better, but only a little bit better, and not well enough to justify the investment time practicing. And I'm going to be honest, I do not find well as punishing to one trick a Brawl comp on as certain other points of the map. Like, it's less punishing to one trick Brawl on Gibraltar, for example, or on well than it is on Gibraltar. Just as an example, you can make Brawl work here. There's enough space to play with in the cage on this half of the point effectively against poke teams, dive teams, etc. that it's not that bad. And something that you've practiced hundreds of hours on versus, hey, this is something that we practice specifically for well. Once metas get evolved long enough, yes, teams will do that, but in the short term, at the very beginnings of metas, teams tend to run their hey specialty comp that they have for something, and late into metas, you tend to find teams have had time to go develop specialty comps. In sort of the middles of metas, or in terms of metas that never fully mature, you'll find a lot of what's been practiced, what teams are good at. They're most running on pretty much everything, even the stuff where it doesn't quite fit map wise. Oh, I hear you, Nordstrom. That would have been fun. That would have been fun. It's cool that more schools are doing it in general now. I think it was something like 400, maybe more schools that have Overwatch teams. So it's getting out there. It's pretty cool to see that it's growing. But yeah, it would have been cool if you could have. And yeah, Bellevue's late on the rotation. Rob Deb gets caught. The sound barrier goes out, so they're going to try to hold this through being down one. Where did the first wall go? I could do that, sure. I mean, Colorado could also reach out to me and, pay me money to either do a one-off session with them or to, do something on a like reoccurring basis. That's something that they could do. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. I don't mind circling around and doing some collegiate reviews. That's fine. There you go, Blah. There you go. I appreciate the plug. I'm not sure Nordstrom needs you to plug me. I think Nordstrom knows that I can do that, but yes. I appreciate it nonetheless. Okay, so the wall comes up here. It's an okay wall. It's a wall that the other May has to spend time rotating around, but she does. That high noon effectively doesn't get value. There's the lamp, but the blizzard is going to maybe be enough. Yeah. Okay, so here we actually see the payoff from the last fight, where Bellevue's rotation was slow into this fight, and Bellevue perhaps deserved to lose this fight, but they still had that blizzard. Remember when Ohio State invested their blizzard to make the last fight, I believe it was, close, where Bellevue hit the better wall, hit the meaningfully better wall to start the fight. Really, the fight was started by a boot from Ohio State, but Bellevue got the meaningfully better wall, but Ohio State kept the fight close by investing one more big ult than them, and that big ult was Blizzard. Well, here, Bellevue, they had the worst rotation, but they were still able, they had the worst rotation, and they had their BAP get picked at the beginning of the fight, but high noon, but they were still able to win the fight because they had that blizzard to invest, and they did, and they won it off the back of that. So that's what good Ulticon. Let me rephrase that. Good neutral fighting, a good neutral game won them the previous fight, which then let them go, okay, and now we're going to use one more ult and win this fight, and they had that one more ult to use. They also used their own high noon and didn't get value out of it, but they were able to use a blizzard that the other team didn't have. That said, they did also, we saw beats, etc. But hey. Stream struggling here? Okay. Also, I should point out this isn't really me being altruistic with this one, Nordstrom. This is me doing my homework on stream. I think we could run into either of these teams reasonably, and I'd like to know some things about them. I am not going over and actively sharing that this stream exists with either of the teams right now. I might in the future be like, oh hey, by the way, here's this game that I reviewed of yours, but to drum up more business. But I'm not looking to do that right now. Though if they find it, that's not the end of my world either. Mm-hmm. I wasn't watching the beginning of this fight well enough. Okay. Why? This isn't my stream lagging. This is their stream lagging. Okay. So this happened. We go up here. This time Bellevue's decided that this is the hold again. They've swapped sides 3 times now. I work with Northeastern Nordstrom. Northeastern was in the 8-2 seeding bracket for what we're going to call TESPA, even though they've renamed it. For that, whereas both of these teams were in the 9-1 seeding bracket. And I think based on where Northeastern went out in the 8-2 seeding bracket, that they'll probably end up against I'm like 75% sure that they'll end up against one of the 4 teams that went out in this round. And one of these 2 teams went out in this round for their first match when in the actual playoffs. Okay, so let me just go one more time here. This happened. I think, was our drop better this time? Was it? Did we actually rotate out properly? And by we, I mean Bellevue here. Probably. Probably blah, yeah. I mean, officially it's a short-term contract, etc. And I we'll see if parties are interested in renewing. But I would expect suspect so, because I am doing recruiting under the belief, and I'm doing recruiting under the belief that the answer is yes, and they believe the answer is yes, and hopefully that continues to be the case. That said, I am interested in growing the program, and some of things are going to depend on, is the program growable type stuff, because it's interesting to me because I think I can grow the program. If there's things that make that less doable, maybe it doesn't happen, and maybe I go somewhere else. But I think that it should be very doable. Okay, so that happened. Is this just a window fire strike shenanigans? No, it's the McCree doing work. McCree doing work from where? Where's McCree doing work from? I don't know. I don't know where McCree's doing work from. Mm-hmm. Probably off-angling. McCree got caught, and now Ohio is able to use their window on point, use their numbers. Okay. Way more versatility, and the ability to shut down ults consistently, or way more consistently than Zarya, is worth a lot. In organized play, just delaying the speed at which the opposing team can throw out Blizzard, grab, can be big. Being able to make using High Noon window more complicated, giving your team an extra second or two to be able to take cover against those kinds of ults can be big. So yeah. hmm So Ohio made the flip there. I think that was off. They caught the McCree early there, and then they had their window from there, and that worked out well. So let's see if Bellevue can retake. Bellevue's got their May threatening over here, close to a blizzard. Where are we ult-wise? We've got self-destruct on Bellevue's side. This has to be last fight. Ohio State does have the better ult bank, so really Bellevue needed to win that last fight. This is going to be tough for Bellevue to win because Ohio State has Shatter, High Noon, and Blizzard, whereas Bellevue just has self-destruct. And they can't really use their self-destruct because the Blizzard's on the board. And if they throw their mech, well, Blizzard can get thrown in. So that's not great. Does Bellevue have a plan? Do they have a set play? Do they have a good concave that they want to do? Do they just want to shoot across the point? They're okay with taking the match slowly. And this High Noon's coming out early. Oh, shoot. Okay. High Noon's effectively going to get wasted. High Noon did effectively get wasted there because it got used before the overtime had started, while there was still time left that Bellevue didn't need to touch the point. So that's going to work out pretty well. Ryan did not spend a ton of shield there, you can see. Okay. And we see the good off angle from Bellevue. We see the Lucios looking on the right there. We see the McCree's playing on the left, whereas we see Ohio's McCree is right here with Core. And that doesn't really make sense because it's not like Performance is going to walk forward and make a flashbang play right now. So I don't particularly like this. There's the wall, but I don't think they can close on it. I don't think that's great. Yeah, there's some panic stuff happening now. The lamp in the window coming out from Bellevue. That makes sense. And there's the blizzard. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like Ohio should clean this up. Am I speaking too soon? Okay. So we see that, and it looks like I got that one. Good for Ohio. I think I have my takeaways from, or I have some takeaways from both teams after having looked at this map here, which is fine. It's interesting that Ohio won that. I mean, I think that really mostly came down to Bellevue getting their. Yeah, I think that mostly came down to that one fight where their Kree got picked. On the other hand, the other fights that they lost were off of slow rotations, and slow counter rotations specifically are a real weakness. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay. That does it for that. And I think, do I want to do another map? Do I want to do another map? It's 9:30. Let me think for a second. Do I want to do another map? No, I don't think I do. I think that's going to do it. I think I'll just answer questions and call it here. Okay. Let's take a look. Catching up on questions. Let's see. We talked about that. Why is that different from ladder at comparable levels? Why is that different from ladder at comparable levels? Ooh, good question. Because you're making a lot more, hey, we're going to do this, there's more trust in the organized play game that no, they're not going to be able to get this Blizzard out, so I'll walk in and brawl with this team because I'm not worried about them getting the Blizzard out before our Diva's been exhausted, which gives us a couple steps move-wise that we can make. That would be one thing. Another thing would be Zarya tends to have more individual carry potential than Diva does. So the actual players, the off-tank players, want to go, hey, I feel like I can Zarya lets you get stronger when your teammates make mistakes, and that's really attractive for a game where a lot of the player base gets set up in this mindset of like, I just need to cover all of my teammates' mistakes to win games. And like, Diva can cover teammates' mistakes defensively, but she doesn't turn that into offense the way Zarya does. Zarya's like, oh, my teammate made a mistake, now I have more energy and I get to take over the game, etc. So it's more appealing to individual players from that standpoint. Players tend to like playing Zarya more, and that's because like they feel like they can take over the game more. The truth is a Diva can absolutely shut down the opponents, and it's really hard to not win when your opponents are absolutely shut down. But Zarya feels like she offensively does more, so players like playing her more on ladder because the defensive play style people don't like it when they're solo queuing. That's kind of a thing, unfortunately. So it's a hey, not trusting your teammates to do stuff. It's this solo queue versus group teamwork mentality type thing, and it's got a little bit to do with hey, you can do more stuff with like hit scan on high ground and off angles and stuff like that where you make fights happen in certain places that doesn't actually happen as often on ladder, because in organized play you can bait a fight to happen back in a cross angle from your McCree, from your soldier, from your widow, from an area that your range DPS can control, is already set up to control on an off angle perhaps. And because that happens, Diva's a much better answer. You need Diva to be able to answer that. Your Zarya can't answer that. Your teams aren't really pulling other teams into spaces where that can happen in ladder. That level of organization just isn't happening. And most ladder Divas are quite bad, yes. Why weren't the Divas on high ground? The Divas weren't on high ground because the high ground on this isn't amazing, and also because the way it works in this specific matchup is your boosters getting forced are really important. So if you don't already have high ground, you can't spend your boosters to go take it, because that's almost as big a deal as, say, the Mei using her ice block. That might have felt a little too cryptic, and I'm trying to not 100% show my hand on this because I'm not sure everyone has figured it out yet. But what we're looking at is basically, if the Diva has used her boosters, she's going to be able to contribute a lot less to the fight, and everyone knows it effectively. And because everyone knows it, her team is vulnerable to getting pushed, or other people are vulnerable to getting pushed. So if she can pre-take the high ground, that can be good, that can be great. But if she goes and takes high ground sort of just before the fight is happening or while the fight is happening, her team can be run over a little bit. The high ground is great if she can find a pre-chance to take it, or if she can take high ground. Like if she took high ground right here when her team is here, great. Totally fine. But she can't go take high ground over here. Part of it is just a map thing. We're like, if her she's here, she can't go take the fight high ground over here. Or if the fight is happening in this box, there's just not really any useful high ground for her. She can't afford to be back here. So I'm gonna say it mostly has to do with just the lack of useful good high ground for how this specific match plays out on this point. Diva's high ground positioning also does have a little bit to do with compositions that are being played. She can definitely afford to take the high ground in the Brawl v Brawl type stuff, but she is going to do less of that if you're playing Brawl into Dive, for example, because she might not want to get as separated. She doesn't want to get caught out alone. Okay. Yeah, it's like Tracer No Recall, exactly. But if you can preset the high ground, great. Great. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else, so I think that's going to do it, and that is going to be the end of my streaming for the night. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.